Today I'm sharing science-based psychology in my YouTube channel, and today we will be discussing about impacts of stress on humans' mental health and physiology, and what are some ways of using neuroscience, biology, and different approaches in psychology if you want to start to use stress as something useful and can help you to improve your health, your mental health, and even make you stronger. So, what are your best hopes from meeting with our session today? What would you like to change? How you would like to react to stress? Which version of you would like to see if you are able to see the change? And maybe there are already some moments when you were able to stay resilient, strong, focused, or productive under stress. What was going different during those moments? What did you do differently? And which qualities, which environments helped you to respond differently? And according to HPA-axis, your stress architecture, stress response is coordinated by hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis and three-component neuroendocrine systems that orchestrated your body's response for perceived threats and challenges. And when hypothalamus detects a possible stressor or a problem, it releases corticotropin releasing hormone, which signals pituitary to release adrenocorticotropic hormone, which is in turn signals adrenal glands to release cortisol and adrenaline. And this cascade produces well-known physiological challenges that are shown in the form of elevated heart rate, increased blood pressure, sharpened attention, and energy mobilization from fat and glycogen stores, and enhanced immune function in the short term. So these changes evolve to maximize performance under acute physical challenges, and they are functionally identical whether the stressor is physical threat or quarterly performance review. So from here we see that actually not all the stress that we're experiencing is harmful, and certain types of stress can be useful for our health. And for instance, if you were able to work with your stress response just 10% more effectively, what would be the first sign of it? What would others notice about you when your stress response is working in your favor? And when stress shows up next time, what might help you to remember that this is my body preparing me to do something meaningful for me, or this is just a challenge? And what's one small thing you could experiment with this week to work with your stress rather than against it? And try to notice which thoughts or feelings you have exactly when you are stressed, or when there are certain challenges arising during the day. And according to research conducted by Hans Selye, according to the meaning that we create from stress, it can either impact us positively or negatively. And the first introduced term stress into medical and popular usage through 1956 work was Hans Selye, who made a critical distinction that has been largely lost in contemporary discourse. And she found that not all stress is harmful, and she identified two types of stress. This stress that's harmful, depleting stress that exceeds people's adaptive capacity, and eustress that is beneficial, energizing, and promoting growth, performance, and engagement. So for instance, exercising is a stressor, learning is a stressor, competition is a stressor, and meaningful creative work is also stressor. And all of them, they produce temporary physiological activation, and when followed by adequate recovery, rest, the system emerges even stronger. You are becoming stronger, more capable, and more resilient. And therefore, the problem is not the stress, but what meaning do we create from it and how we perceive it. And if there is a chronic stress without recovery, without rest, it can be accepted as threatening by your nervous system, and this can also cause challenges. So there are two main points that we have discussed. First of which meaning we create from the stress and how we are perceiving the stress. Is it either something that might help us to recover, to grow stronger, and to make us stronger and resilient, or something that can be accepted as threat. And depending on that meaning that we have, it can be either beneficial or harmful. And also noticing the patterns, like is the stress is chronic and we don't give ourselves any opportunity to rest, or is the stress, like there are times when you feel stressed and then you are taking your time and you are relaxing, resorting, resting. And if you are giving a chance for yourself to rest, then in that sense it becomes useful. So what helped you to recover after stress? What generally makes you to feel relaxed? How do you take care of your recovery physically or mentally after demanding situations? And if stress was a signal of importance rather than danger, what might it be telling you? And how you might have approached stress, and what difference would it create for you? So, according to Jim Blaskovich at Santa Barbara, developed by challenge and threat model that identified two different cardiovascular patterns linked with stress appraisal, patterns with dramatically different consequences for performance and health. The first of them was challenge response. It was characterized by increased cardiac output with vasodilation, expanded blood vessel capacity that increased blood flow to muscles and brain, and linked with approach, motivation, optimal decision making, creative problem solving, and peak performance. So physiological state of an athlete who feels stress, who accepts stress as a challenge, he might feel confident, prepared, and engaged. But if a person sees the stress as a threat, then all of these physiological symptoms are accompanied by even more stress, anxiety, and they might lead to avoidance, decrease of motivation, impaired working memory, narrowed attention, and decreased performance. So physiological state of someone facing a demand that they don't believe they can meet. So appraisal, like the way we perceive stress, the way we see stress, either as a challenge or as a threat, determines how the stress is going to impact us. And this means that stress response is malleable through cognitive intervention. By noticing which thoughts or beliefs we have regarding the stress and changing our relationship with these thoughts is the first step towards changing the impact of stress. For instance, in solution-focused brief therapy, we could ask if the stress was still here but it stopped impacting you negatively, or if you were resilient even if the stress was there, what might be different? What might be different about the way you are approaching stress, or what might be you be doing differently? What would you notice about yourself? And everyone's answer is different, because depending on our beliefs, culture, environments that we were raised, and our biological, genetical differences, everyone can find their own ways of relaxing, feeling better, resetting, and resting. And according to Yerkes and Dodson's law that has established relationship between arousal and performance, an inverted U-curve in which performance improves as arousal increases up to an optimal point, and after which additional arousal impairs performance. So there are certain optimal zones for everyone when they feel overwhelmed or anxious, and at that level a person can perform at their best, and it can change according to a person. And you can find by yourself, for instance, trying to notice at what times you performed well even if anxiety was there, and finding your optimal zone can help you to replicate it again and to use it for your performance. And elite performers are doing exactly the same. They are trying to find their optimal zone, what makes them to feel engaged, to feel focused, and what their optimal zone is, and using these zones in order to perform better, to be productive, and to stay focused. So if the task, for instance, is too boring, too boring and you are not interested, and you don't have any anxiety, then you might feel disengaged or you might underperform. And on the contrary, if you are too much activated and you feel a lot of anxiety, it might be difficult to focus. So finding this optimal zone, the balanced zone, and using it intentionally is another strategy that you can use for your performance. And Stanford researcher Ellie Crum has conducted a series of experiments demonstrating that the belief people hold about stress independent of actual stressor was also impacting their physiological and psychological outcomes. And for instance, in the landmark study, participants in a financial company during a period of significant organizational stress were divided into two groups. And one of them watched a short video about benefits of stress, and the second one watched videos about negative impacts of stress. And according to the meaning that they have developed, the ones who believed that stress was impacting them positively were able to perform better, and their physiological symptoms, biology of their health become better, whereas those who were focused on negative impacts of stress were considerably underperforming, and it was impacting their health negatively. Therefore, again, noticing where do we place our attention, is it on the possibilities, on positive sides, or what can be done, what can be changed, or on the negative sides, and depending on it, our behavior and feelings are changing, and performance is also changing. So maybe noticing your beliefs and thoughts about stress, and noticing where do you place your attention while you are trying to perform or trying to be successful despite the stress are some strategies you can apply, and intentionally redirecting your attention towards what can be changed, what can be done, what can you do exactly to solve the problem or to perform well are some strategies you can apply for yourself. And mindset changes psychology. According to Crum's research, there are three pathways through which stress mindset affects the results. The first one is mindset influences attention and behavior. Maybe you have noticed that if a person is significantly stressed, it can be difficult to maintain their attention, to focus, and it significantly impacts their attention. And also, people with an enhancing stress mindset are more likely to seek information about the stressor, engage with challenges rather than avoiding them, and using stress productively rather than suppressing. And second mindset is influences physiological response, and challenge versus threat distinction produces measurably different cardiovascular and hormonal profiles. And those who are avoiding stress or seeing it as something dangerous, this impacts their memory, their attention, and avoidance creates more anxiety. And the third one is mindset influences recovery. People who view stress as enhancing show faster physiological recovery and after stresses, reducing the negative impact of repeated stress exposure. So, according to CBT's cognitive reappraisal, again, changing meaning that we create from the experiences that we have, or developing a new mindset, it says that changing appraisal of a stressor from threat response, for instance, if you think that I cannot handle this stress, this is beyond my capacity and something bad will happen, and can differ from if you have a different meaning towards the challenge and stress. If you see it's something that can make you stronger, that you can become and grow from it, and if you accept that this demands certain energy and demands something from you, and you have resources, and if you are believing that you have resources and capabilities to meet the demand, then growth happens in this kind of engagement and produces measurable changes in the physiological stress response, performance outcomes, and long-term well-being. And reappraisal doesn't deny the difficulty. It, of course, validates your feelings, but it recontextualizes difficulty within a framework of capacity and growth. And according to research also, even people who were exposed to trauma, depending on what meaning they create from the stress and difficulties, they were able to recover faster, to cope with challenges easier, and to regain their mental well-being, rather than those who more focus on negative sides of it, and depending on their beliefs that they have about recovery process, the stress. So what does this feel even when does it feel even slightly more manageable when you are experiencing stress? And what's happening differently during those times? When have you already responded to something difficult as a challenge, even a little, not as a threat? And who do you want to be when the stress arises? And if this version already started to show up more often, what would you notice about yourself? And according to Brad Stulberg and Steve Magnus, in their research synthesis Peak Performance, they found that stress followed by rest leads to growth. It's not the maximum stress, not maximum rest, but balance of it, right dose of the right kind of stress followed by adequate recovery from sufficient quality was found to help you to increase your performance, to focus better, to stay resilient and healthy. And this equation applies across different domains, such as physical training, exercising, for instance, sleeping and eating well, nutrition, fitness gains, and cognitive performance. It can be focused deep work plus recovery, skill development and creative capacity, and emotional capacity, which involves regulated engagement with difficult experiences, and it can be reflection, journaling, and which leads to psychological resilience. And chronic problem in high achieving populations is not excessive stress, but excessive stress with inadequate recovery result, which produces cumulative performance degradation rather than growth. So what can we learn from it is that it's important to take care of your mental health and to create routines that would help you to relax, to research, to feel rested, and finding your own ways of relaxing, researching are important for staying engaged, for staying productive, focused. And what does chronic stress does to your brain? Bruce McEwan's concept of allostatic load describes cumulative physiological cost of chronic stress exposure without adequate recovery. And if there is extended cortisol elevation, the hallmark of chronic stress produces measurable structural changes to brain, which can lead to hippocampal volume reduction, and this would mean impaired memory consolidation, contextual learning, and prefrontal cortex thinning, which would lead to degrading executive functioning, impulsive control, and complex decision making, and amygdala sensitization, which would make the person highly sensitive, increasing threat reactivity and emotional dysregulation. So in practical terms, chronic stress, a person who was exposed for stress for a very long period of time will literally less, it would be difficult for them to make decisions, to concentrate, maybe to regulate their emotions, and to they can be impacted by even slight stress even more. And however, the good news is that according to neuroplasticity of our brains, and by changing our environments, experiments, changing the way we relate to stress and to the events, we can again reshape our brains, and we can intentionally help ourselves to improve our mental health. And Sabine Sonnentek's research on work recovery found that there are 4 dimensions of recovery experiences that predict next day performance and well-being. First of them is psychological detachment from work. It can be mental disengagement during non-work time or just physical absence. It can be shutting down your computer, maybe closing your applications, or making a plan for the next day, or using any relaxation, low activation, positive states, and engaging with challenging non-work activities, maybe your hobbies, maybe using relationships, maybe using anything that helps you to relax and research, and control genuine autonomy over how recovery time is used. And the absence of any of three dimensions can reduce recovery quality and next day cognitive performance. So this means if you are deliberately choosing how to relax, if you are using hobbies or anything that makes you relax and to shut down and close the day, this means that stress and work will not impact your mental well-being and health so much. And before any high demand situation or stress, conducting an explicit challenge appraisal and noticing how are you approaching the stress, which thoughts you have regarding the stress, what are the resources you have available to meet this demand or this stress, which skills, experiences, support, preparation is already available for you, and what's the growth opportunity is involved in this challenge. Also thinking about the next steps, what difference would it make for you if you will be able to cope with the stress successfully, and what difference would it make for the others who can help you to motivate yourself for action, and how does this demand connect to something you value, why this task is important for you. And three-step reappraisal shifts the physiological response from threat uh, to seeing it as a challenge and something that might help you to grow, to develop, and to become stronger. And research by Blasevich confirms that deliberate challenge appraisal produces measurably different cardiovascular profiles than threat appraisal within minutes. So who do you want to be while you are experiencing stress? How do you want the stress to impact you? And how would you know that this version of you is already present and starting to show up more often? And when have challenges helped you to develop, to grow in the past? What was different during those situations? And what might you learn about yourself if you stay engaged with the stress and if you would try to find solutions of the stress rather than focusing and accepting it as a threat? And why these stressful situations matter to you? Do you want to learn, to succeed, to contribute, or is there any other meaning that is important for you while you are trying to achieve certain things and while there is stress on your way? So I tried to share some strategies that might help you to cope with stress better and even make it easier for you to cope with stress and to recover faster and to see it as a challenge instead of threat, and how you can benefit from the stress. I hope this was helpful for you. Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time, and see you in the next videos again.